Call to order the Wednesday, June 12th, 2024 Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting. It is 3:31 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Velazquez,
Present.
Vice Chair Browning,
Present.
Chair Schweitzer,
Present.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys. We have 3 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. A quorum being present, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. I will entertain to approve the minutes of Wednesday, June 5th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 6th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Velazquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Browning,
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys. We have 3 aye votes.
Thank you. With your vote, we have approved the minutes of Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, and we will move on to board bills for review. We're going to go out of order today and start with board bill number 51. If Madam Clerk could please pull up the presentation for that bill. And while she is doing that, I will pass over the chairmanship to Vice Chair Browning, and we will begin the bill.
All right, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board Bill number 51.
Thank you. I'll wait until Madam Clerk has the presentation pulled up. Wonderful. Next slide, please. So you may remember that we have been working on this legislation for some time now. The city has a complete streets policy that was enacted by ordinance number 69955 in 2015. We are working on the update to that policy now. This bill has gone through several different iterations and would not be possible and where it is today without the work of advocacy organizations like TrailNet, like Transform 314, Smart Growth America, the American Heart Association, and the Community Mobility Committee, not to mention all of the hard work put in by our various departments and administration, especially Scott Ogilvie, who's here today, as well as the Transportation and Mobility Plan consultants and many people within the mayor's office. I would also be remiss not to mention Vice Chair Browning, his assistant Caitlin, and my assistant Christian for all of the work that they've put into this bill. Next slide. So in order to make this presentation as clear as possible, we are comparing our current bill in front of us, Board Bill 51, with the ordinance that is in current existence within the city. We've put together this presentation that goes over the differences in the 2 policies. So some of the things that are similar, the bill has a complete streets steering committee that meets quarterly, but the big difference in Board Bill 51 is that the steering committee established within this bill will be open to the public and allows for public comment, which is a big change and a really important step forward for transparency in our process. This bill also goes over a lot of kind of skipping around to the planning process regarding the high injury network and making sure that the very necessary planning process that's happening throughout the Transportation Mobility Plan has the steps forward for continuing to be updated and implemented within the city of St. Louis. It also makes sure that the outside organizations that are doing work on the city's streets, anything that is basically being permitted by Board of Public Service that meets the major project guidelines would be under the purview of this committee. And as well as another point for public participation, that this would include a mayor-appointed citizen seat to the board, to the committee rather, so that we can make sure that not only the meeting's public, but there's someone who is representing just individual citizens, more or less, sitting on the committee. Next slide. I think go back one. Great. So here's a little bit more of the differences in the bill. The current Complete Streets ordinance gives more of sort of general thoughts about what should be done and what should be reviewed. And then the Board Bill 51 is more specific about the benchmark that should be established, as well as making sure that there is consideration of vulnerable populations city when looking at projects and planning how the city is building our network of complete streets. The Board Bill 51 also maintains the training requirements for city staff. Next slide. One of the things that we wanted to make sure was really clear in the bill is, what exactly are the projects that would be under the purview of this committee. So in this iteration of the bill, we have a 500,000 or more project amount listed, so that we have set a threshold for what sorts of projects on the streets fall under the committee's purview and should be assessed by the committee. Which is the next bullet point. The committee will be charged with providing an annual report to the Board of Aldermen and working through presentations within the committee and assessments within the committee's time about what is in the projects and the accommodations that are being made or not being made in the project. So not only will we have a very publicly available document that shows all the projects the city is working on and their adherence with the Complete Streets policy in an annual report, but also those projects would be being discussed quarterly by this committee of both city staff as well as the citizen member, with presentations from any of our partner organizations that are building on our roads. Next slide. So that is the differences in a nutshell between what the current ordinance has in place and what our updated legislation has today. At this time, we have received feedback from numerous organizations about, initial things they'd like to see added or changed in the bill, and those pieces of feedback are just invaluable because we're trying to get to the best bill possible. I'd say the most important thing that I would share about the bill today is that not only is Mayor Jones in support of this bill and has given her support to the bill, they believe that the bill as it's written today is operational and possible to achieve with what we have in place in the city right now. And so often here at the board, we talk about things that we would really like to have, and we have a lot of feedback about why that might not be possible, or with the staff constraints that something couldn't be implemented in the way that perhaps the alderperson intended. And so it's our goal with this bill that not only do we have a really good bill that is a huge improvement in the policy form and the written form, but also that what will actually provided operationally is possible and will be done by our city staff. And so having the administration buy-in and the mayor's buy-in is just crucial. So at this time, if there are questions from the committee, I'm happy to take them, but I believe there are at least a few members of the public here to speak, as well. Scott Ogilvie with Planning and Zoning, our Complete Streets Manager with the city, has attended. Thank you, Scott, and is able to answer any questions if people have questions of him.
Okay, well, I will ask the committee real quick if we would like to ask questions now or if we would prefer to do so after public comment. I'm inclined to let the public speak first. Alderwoman Velasquez, do you have a preference?
Same. No, I think that's great.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and hear from the public. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public who are signed up to speak?
I have one person signed up for Board Bill 51, Mr. Charles Bryson with TrailNet.
Okay, and just a reminder, if you do want to speak on this, you can sign up with the clerk or put it in the chat online. We will limit speakers to 3 minutes, and Mr. Bryson, you are welcome to come up and testify at this time. Mr. Bryson, I need to swear you in. If you could raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed. You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. TrailNet, which is the organization, as you all know, that is dedicated to safe streets for all, commends the work of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee and Chairwoman Schweitzer on this important piece of legislation. We realize this took a lot of work and sincere, and I say that again, sincere public engagement to craft such legislation. TrailNet believes, Alderwoman, you have hit all 10 goals of good, complete street legislation as defined by Smart Growth America. Congratulations. In particular, TrailNet appreciates the following being implemented in legislation among many things that are there. The strongly worded mission of the Complete Streets effort to include all forms of transportation, the formation of a formal Complete Streets Advisory Committee with community participation on the committee, mandating meeting requirements and being open to the public, the development and use of a vulnerable population index in planning and implementation processes, and mandating that multiple departments and divisions identify one or more Complete Streets policy coordinators within each department or division to oversee implementation of and future update of this policy. There are, however, several issues that we are requesting this body consider. Number one, the 500,000 trigger point seems a little high and might preclude using Complete Streets policies and practices on what might be considered minor street or sidewalk planning, maintenance, repair, or repaving. The legislation does not name nor mandate collaboration with Vision Zero. This is important as the city will be applying for both Vision Zero demonstration and/or implementation funds as soon as August of this year. The legislation appoints 2 people from the Board of Public Service on the Advisory Committee and only 1 from the Streets Department. With a possible change in future years of the Streets Department functions, it would make more sense or be more logical to have at least 2 people from the Streets Department, maybe Streets and Lighting or whatever, to be part of the committee instead of just 1. Finally, we strongly urge, and I will say it again, we strongly urge adding the Treasurer's Office, perhaps the Parking Division in particular, be included. This is due to the need for planning where parking meters are located to allow for daylighting, which, as we know, happens both on major streets and side streets, and has become a major concern for people's safety. Again, TrailNet thanks you for moving this critical legislation forward, and we hope for your favorable consideration of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Always good to hear from you. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else for public comment?
That is all we have.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer, if you are open to any questions at this time.
Thank you so much. Yes.
First, do you have anything to answer any of the comments made in public comment?
Thank you. Yes, I would love to. TrailNet has been an incredible, and Charles Bryson in particular has been an incredible partner as we put together this legislation. We did, over the last 2 days, receive some pieces of feedback from TrailNet, as Charles read, as well as from Smart Growth America and the American Heart Association, who have been active partners in crafting this legislation with their concerns and things they'd like to see change. The mayor's office, the administration, has been a fantastic partner as we've worked through this bill, and talked with, forwarded all of those concerns to them, and we're really working. just see if there's anywhere else, any of the suggestions that we can all agree on and to keep it moving forward. So the plan now is to take from now until the next committee meeting on Tuesday to see which of the recommendations from those organizations and some others that have come in that should be put into the bill and see what we can do. As I mentioned during my comments, it is crucial that the administration is supportive and ready to help implement this bill. It's one thing to have a policy on paper. It's very different to have that policy in practice. And without the buy-in of the administration and without their support, I would worry we would be just passing something on paper, which is not my goal. My goal is to have a much better system for building our streets. And so with that in mind, I'm not planning on asking for the vote today, so we can take that week. I do want to say to any advocates watching, again, to Charles' points, this has been a labor of love for many organizations, and I've certainly compromised some of the things in this bill that I really wanted, but I've also gotten some things in the bill that I really wanted, and so there is some nature of compromise. And I think the most important thing here is this bill is a huge step forward from what we currently have in place. And if we can take even a baby step further forward between today and Tuesday, then we should absolutely take it. But to keep the bill on schedule for passage, my hope, as long as the committee, will vote for it, is to move the bill from committee next week and have kind of the final language in place by then.
Well, thank you. I noticed that Alderwoman Keys has joined us online. Alderwoman Keys, we are discussing Board Bill 51, the updated complete streets, and we are doing committee questions at this time. So do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time, and I apologize for my lateness. Caught up on a call, and so didn't get to hear that much about the bill.
Well, no worries. We're glad you could join us, and certainly understand aldermanic schedules sometimes are not always on track. Alderwoman Velasquez, do you have any questions at this time?
I don't. I think I appreciate, I do appreciate Alderwoman Schweitzer's decision. I actually signed on as a co-sponsor, so I support this bill, but I think it's good to give the community a week to respond to what's out there. And certainly, I think it is a step in the right direction. And both of you, Alderman Schweitzer and Alderpersons Schweitzer and Browning, thank you for your hard work on this. I know infrastructure isn't always the sexiest thing, but it's super important, and it's critical that we think through these building blocks for our city and for pedestrians and everybody in the city.
Thank you. And I disagree. I think infrastructure is sexy. So we're excited to work on this. It's been really a joy to watch this in process. There's been so many key players. And I think it's pretty cool that the last update that was done by, at the time, Alderman Ogilvie, who is here today and was instrumental in this process as well. So it feels like kind of an intergenerational thing that we've done to put this together. And not that you're that much older than us. But I want to really emphasize that this has been a effort, and just having a front seat to the progress that's been happening here has been really educational, in watching how people can work together to create something bigger than themselves. This is a policy that's aimed at saving lives. That's just the direct truth of this. And we're hopeful that with this update, we can edge closer to having a city that does reach that Vision Zero goal. I only have a couple questions, and I think it's just to clarify some points that were made in public comment. Alderwoman Schweitzer, could you speak a little more to the $500,000 cap and why that was chosen?
Right. That was a really, it's a good question. So in discussion with the administration and with the transportation mobility plan consultants, it's figuring out, what really is the purview of this committee and what are they going to discuss. And a lot of times when the way the funding structures work in the city of St. Louis, an alderperson might have, a few $1,000s here or there for speed hump here or there, or sidewalk repair here or there. And we didn't want the list of review within the committee that to be just completely like onerous, for lack of a better way of saying it, to kind of bog down the work with really small projects. And so the discussion was, what is the size of a project that would and should trigger this public process, the ability for public comment and weighing in. But I do understand that there's some disagreement from the advocates who've worked on this bill. I think that ceiling is too high, and it's one of the things that I've got put in front of the mayor's office for their review. So as we work through what changes might come out next week.
Understood. And I think it's more of a floor than a ceiling in a way, because it's something that we actually have to reach above in order to trigger this review.
I'm sorry if I said it backwards.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with the funding mechanisms that we currently use, whether it's St. Louis Works money or Ward Capital. The paving of streets can often get into the couple $100,000 range alone, and that can just be for a residential street. So we do know that there are costs that can get up there, but the $500,000 floor is something that triggers it when there is a larger project that involves mainly a corridor or something like that.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of, I can assure people there was a lot of discussion that went into this and evaluating what the actual costs of projects were. And I think that there will be further updates. I understand this to be really a first salvo in the attempt to revise how we take care of our streets. Am I understanding that correctly?
Will you repeat the question?
So is this is not the last bill we'll pass out there?
Right. No, it is definitely not. And the planning process and focusing the city's planning process around safety and around building networks and focusing on areas where there are high injury, all of that is crucial. And the better our processes and systems are, the better ability we have to make future changes that can continue building on that improvement. This is, it's why we'll still have jobs tomorrow.
Excellent. And then the last question I have was the mentioning about parking being included because of daylighting intersections. Could you speak a little to that?
In terms of having a parking representative on the committee, or just parking concerns in general?
I think that was the ask, is having parking.
Right, and that ask has been presented to the mayor's office as something that we should be considering. I do think that the treasurer's office, as an office that has to do so much with our streets, is a very good suggestion, and I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I think when it comes to accessibility of our streets and parked cars, we often don't think about it. We don't give it a second thought as to the personal storage of vehicles on our city streets. But I often see the most dangerous situations out there being created by a car that's parked illegally too close to a stop sign or intersection that then hides pedestrians until the last possible moment, or can create difficulty in crossing the street. So I hope that our standards going forward consider accessibility, and I believe that this Complete Streets Committee has been assembled in a way that does prioritize accessibility. So I'm sure that will be part of the discussion, whether parking is included in that or not. That's all the questions I have right now. I am very excited about this bill, very happy to support it, and I'm disappointed that I have to wait a week to vote on it, but I will patiently wait another week.
Thank
Alderwoman
you.
Keys, you have your hand up. Do you have an additional question?
Yes, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
And I
noted.
too shall wait with bated breath until we are ready to vote.
And I do appreciate those comments. I really do want to pass this bill and keep it moving. It's just, as Mr. Bryson said, just being as cognizant as possible of incorporating the feedback that we are getting.
Well, thank you. And Alderman Aldridge is here. He's not on our committee anymore this year, but he is here today, and so I want to throw it to him to see if he has any questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. Kind of missed being on this committee, but I will say, also just want to thank Alderwoman Schweitzer. I know we last session had a lot of conversations about complete streets, and one thing at the process, sometimes at the Board of Aldermen, you think you're just gonna file a bill and get it done, but I know you've been very intentional. You've brought all the community players to the table. You've worked with the mayor's office. You've worked with members at the Board of Aldermen here, and I just want to say thank you for your work. Also agree with Alderwoman from the 6th. You know, infrastructure is not sexy, but I know between the Alderman from the 9th and the Alderwoman from the 1st, that is their thing. And I just want to say thank you for all the great work you do, and I'd love to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you, Alderman.
All right. Well, this is what it looks like when something is done well. So I really appreciate the tone of this meeting. It's been great. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized to close.
Thank you so much. We'll be back next week. Our meeting is a sort of a different day next week in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. So we'll be meeting Tuesday at 3:30, same room, and we will hear that bill again then. Thank you.
Excellent. And I will hand the chairmanship back to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. Wonderfully done, as always. Alderman Aldridge, we're going to move to your bill next, Board Bill number 42. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Today, I'm going to present Board Bill 42. It is a temporary easement at 61 Ferry Street. And I have speakers here to be able to talk about it. So I will pass it over to them, and then I'll come back up and answer any questions outside of questions you may have for our speaker that's here today.
Afternoon.
Hello. Please introduce yourself if you can, please, for the committee, and please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. My name is Nodrick Tankins. I am Special Assistant to the Comptroller.
Oh, you don't need. We have our process. We generally swear in people who are from the public, but not from the city offices.
Sure. So a brief summary. This bill is related to MSD rehab, basically, for the Bissell treatment plant. It's a request for temporary easement to allow ease of access, perform the rehab or reconstruction. And I have with me two speakers, Mr. Thomas Ray and Mr. Nick Campworth from Kokosing Placker. And if it pleases you all, I will have him come up to speak more thoroughly on the issue.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Do I need to be sworn in?
Sure, since you're not city staff. Do you raise your right hand, please, and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I am Nick Campworth. I'm project manager with Kokosing Placker. We're the general contractor for a project at the MSD Bissell Point Wastewater Treatment Plant. That's the plant north of St. Louis off of Hall Street and Grand. The project is to construct a new solids handling facility to replace the existing technology. And this is a project that's being implemented by MSD to reduce air emissions and just improve the overall efficiency and quality of the waste treatment process at that plant. The site plan should have been included with the agenda here, if anybody wants to reference it. The work area is outlined on that site plan. As you can see, the work area is very tight to the edge of the MSD property, and the easement being requested is to allow access to traverse that sliver of St. Louis City-owned property. The property is a larger piece, more commonly known as 61 Ferry Street, but we're just requesting access on the portion of the property that is highlighted on that site plan. This project is anticipated to, we're starting construction this year. We've actually started site prep and early construction work in May, and the project is anticipated to continue through December 2027. So this temporary construction easement would be requested for that time frame for this piece of property adjoining the MSD Bissell plant.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge, would you like anyone else to present? Wonderful. Mr. Ray, if you don't mind raising your right hand, and we'll swear you in. Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you have anything to add, please go for it.
Well, my name is Tom Ray. I'm with the firm of Armstrong Teasdale. We drafted the board bill and redrafted Nick's construction easement. It is for a 4-year period, and it's merely to drive over our property to get to the site, and it will be completely repaired upon completion. So with that, I'll answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you. With that, unless Alderman Aldridge, if you have anything more to add, I can go through the questions.
No more to add, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Velazquez?
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Browning?
No questions. I'll just say that I would love to have a tour of this plant someday. I find this infrastructure fascinating.
There we go again.
Yeah, just never stops.
We're
with
just
this
all
committee.
about, yeah, all the things.
Good luck, Alderwoman Velazquez.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. Well, thank you for bringing this forward. So really interesting stuff. Fluidized bed incinerator. I don't know a lot about exactly what work will be occurring there, but I'm guessing it's, maybe you could give us a few more minutes of just information.
Sure, I could talk all day on the details of this, but
Sure.
the meat and potatoes of the project is, like you said, a fluidized bed incinerator. So the existing treatment facility is incinerating their waste, but they're using an older technology, multiple hearth incineration, and then the dewatering process that goes along with that. First they dewater the bio waste and turn it into a biosolid. It's roughly the consistency of mud, and then that mud gets pumped into this incinerator that essentially reduces the waste to ash.
Fascinating.
So, and then
And you said this process is a more environmentally, the update that is being proposed and needs this easement to move forward is a more environmentally friendly process and meets regulations. Is that what you were saying?
it exceeds regulations, and it is definitely more environmentally friendly. If I remember right, we've had several different public outreach meetings to identify the environmental benefits of this project. And if I remember, I think it's reducing emissions by 71% from the existing system.
That's very good news. Is this part of the consent decree work? Or?
It is.
Okay. How much is this costing?
So the overall, this project is split between two different plants. You have the Bissell Point plant in the city of St. Louis, and the Lee treatment plant in southern St. Louis and St. Louis County. Mm-hmm. Between the two sites, it's about a $900 million project.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think we should give you access to that piece of land. You need to do this so we can do all those good things.
It is a very important and exciting project for the community and the city.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There's so much improvement happening in so many different places. So I appreciate hearing that. Those are my questions. Is there any public comment on this?
We have none.
Okay. And no written comment either?
No.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay, I have no further questions from the committee. Alderman Aldridge, you're recognized to close.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Alderman Browning, I will take you upon that tour, and I'll work with the company to see if we can get a tour. Actually, we're supposed to take a tour a while back, so we can do it all together. But with that, I would just ask for a due pass on Board Bill 42.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would also like to go to the tour. With that, I will ask for a due pass recommendation, or I'll entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer? Alderwoman Keys?
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Browning?
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer?
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer? We have 4 aye votes.
By your vote, we have sustained the motion from the Alderman from the 9th, and we have passed Board Bill 42 out of committee with the pass recommendation. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Alderman Aldridge, you can stay up there, and we will move to Board Bill number 35, which is item number 1 on our agenda today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Board Bill 35 is various speed humps throughout the 14th Ward. I do them a little differently than other wards. I break down where these speed humps will be located per neighborhood and then where they will be located on the street. One that I really want to highlight attention to that has been ongoing problems is the one in College Hill on Condi Street. This is a street where it's, I mean, like most of our streets, they may be small, but a lot of fast driving has happened, even to the point where people's homes have been damaged. Thankful to BPS. Outside of these speed humps, we are also looking at other calming measures to ensure that this beautiful historic home and other homes on this block does not continue to get hit when cars are running past them, but they will be speed humps located 2 at Downtown West, 2 in Hyde Park, 1 in College Hill, and then 1 in the St. Louis Place neighborhood. And I will open up for any questions.
Thank you. Any public comment on this bill, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
Thank you. With that, we'll go through members of the committee for questions. Alderman Key.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Velasquez.
No questions, thank you.
Vice Chair Browning.
No questions.
I appreciate that. Anything you'd like to say to close, Alderman?
No, ma'am.
Wonderful. With that, we'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill number 35 with the do pass recommendation.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Any call for previous roll?
Previous roll.
Previous roll.
2 calls for previous roll. It's been moved and seconded. We have a call for previous roll. Any objection? Hearing none, we have passed Board Bill number 35 with the do pass recommendation. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized on Board Bill number 38. See if you can get a hat trick today.
Oh, yes. Hockey. For the ones that didn't know that, I play the video game, I don't watch it, so when I get 3, they say hat trick. So Board Bill 38 is installing various stop signs in the 14th Ward. There's also a map included. This is an area where there's truly no stop signs between Clinton Street once you get off of North Florissant going east, as well as Madison. And when people take 14th Street crossing over North Florissant going north, it's kind of a speedway, so don't necessarily think we need speed humps at this time, but additional stop signs in these areas would be helpful to try to slow down traffic before we head the route of speed humps. So just trying every measure that we can as a Board of Aldermen to try to make our streets a little safer.
Thank you, Alderman. Any public comment on this bill, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
Okay, we'll move through the committee for questions. Alderman Keys.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Velasquez.
No questions, thank you.
Vice Chair Browning.
No questions.
Okay, Alderman Aldridge, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for your time. Next time I will bring 4 bills, and I don't know if there's a saying for 4, but just keep adding them up. And with that, I will ask for a do pass on Board Bill 38.
Thank you, Alderman. I will entertain a motion for a do pass recommendation of Board.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. There's been a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we have passed Board Bill number 38 with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you, guys.
We will move on to item number 5 on the agenda, introduced by Alderman Michael Browning. Vice Chair Browning, you are recognized.
Thank you. This is a really simple board bill that is simply correcting the street name to match the sign that is out on that street. At some point when this bill was passed, the name got changed, but it turns out it should be named Avenue, not Boulevard. So we are simply fixing the ordinance to match the physical street sign that is out there on the street. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's a very, very administrative function.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. Madam Clerk, any comment on this bill?
No comment.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys, any questions?
No comment, thank you.
No comment, no questions. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Oh, no questions, I'm sorry.
I got nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You and I have discussed this, and I appreciate the desire to have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, as it were. Anything to say to close?
I just want to thank Alderwoman Tyus for bringing this to my attention. She brought this to me and also brought the full bill to me as well. I think that's the kind of cooperation and teamwork that we could see more at the board, and I really appreciate her bringing this so that we could make sure that the law matches the environment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. And with that, I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill 49.
So moved.
Second.
Any call for previous roll?
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th and seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. There's been a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we've passed Board Bill number 49 with a due pass recommendation. Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. And with that, I will turn the chairmanship back over to Alderman Browning, or Vice Chair Browning rather, for Board Bill number 45. And Madam Clerk, I believe you should have a presentation for this bill as well.
Yes.
All right, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board Bill number 45.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning and members of the committee. This bill is the appropriation and payment for operating expenses, capital expenses, including lease purchase agreements and debt services of the parking division for the treasurer's office. So basically the budget there. This is the presentation can be much better given by the city treasurer's office, and we have 3 folks from that office here today.
No,
Someone is
gracias.
not muted.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay, Alderman. Just letting you know. With that, if Treasurer Lane is able to come up, and I'll let you decide who does what parts of your presentation. Just really grateful to have you here and doing this.
All right, Treasurer Lane, as a city employee, I do not need to swear you in. Please proceed when ready.
All right, thank you all for allowing us to present today. This is the second go around, so it should be very familiar to me, and we should be able to move through it pretty quickly. I want to give some background so we can go to slide 2. So we present our budget, the parking budget, to this committee. We presented to the budget committee as a courtesy as well, just to keep you all as Alder folks up to date on what we do in the parking division. However, there are no city or general revenue dollars that go to fund the parking division. So it is an enterprise fund, just meaning that it operates independently, not independently of oversight, but independently financially. So all the money that the parking division spends, it has to make. So if we have a budget shortfall or we don't make as much money as we're supposed to, there are no general revenue funds that cover that or general revenue funds that fund the parking division. So it's a self-funded enterprise. So I want to start with that. But we still do present our budget to you all for approval because we are a city department and a city entity, and everyone needs to know. So we are all about transparency. So this is just letting you know what all we do in the treasurer's office. So of course, advantage banking and managed investments for all of our city departments, operating the parking division, which is what we're here to talk about today, and then financial empowerment services for residents, employees, youth, and adults in our Office of Financial Empowerment. So that's all we do. And then the next, we can go to the next slide, and we can, okay. So I already talked a little bit about the parking division as an enterprise fund. I'll skip over that slide for time purposes. But then we'll just get into essentially the budget numbers. So our year-end results from fiscal year 23-4, fiscal year 24, what we're proposing as this new year's budget. We'll take a look, as always, as our debt balances, what we have in our reserve accounts, any new things that we're doing, and then also what is the general fund contribution. So that's after revenues and costs are calculated, what is going to be put back into the city's general coffers. Go to the next one. You can skip this because we kind of talked about that. We can go to the next slide. All right. So last year, we look at budget performance projected versus, so this time last year when we were saying this is what we're going to do and how we ended up. I won't go through line by line, but give people an opportunity to look at it. And I know we're saving questions for the end, but any big highlights that I have are just that supplies, we had a bigger budget than we needed, so we spent down on that. Same thing with personnel, and that's not that we cut wages or cut personnel, but just with those personnel challenges that the whole city and really our nation is facing, just trying to find folks who don't mind not working virtually, I guess, to work has been a little bit difficult and challenging, but we're still trying to make sure we budgeted for those positions, and we're still trying to make sure that we fill them. But we were down 12% there, or 12% savings, so to speak, negative 12% variance, and then also on our supplies. The other ones are more negligible, so I won't go into detail with those. What I will say on the equipment and improvement, so we did have a space, so we were up 16% there as compared to our projected budget, but that was a space in one of our lease spaces that needed major renovations and improvements. So we spent the money this past fiscal year to be able to do that, and you'll see that that number bounces back down to normal levels in our fiscal year 25 budget. Okay, we can go to the next one. So this is what we're proposing. So we are, so again, I'll let those numbers sink in, but the biggest areas is just knowing that we want to be fully staffed. So we still have that increase in some of our personnel. A lot of that personnel is to make sure that we're offering the best services that we can as a city. A big thing, I don't need to tell you all about this, that we want to make sure we have in the city is safety and security. So we've invested a lot into safety and security, including moving our security staff in-house, and that's for our garages, our lots, so City Hall lot. We know that we've had some bad actors on the City Hall lot in the past several months that have been accosting city workers, people who are coming to do business in the city. So we have ramped up security there and seen promising outcomes from that. And then also knowing that garages can be places where can be unsafe when people are leaving games and events. So we want to make sure that we have really good security and are providing safety to people who are using city facilities. And then again, I want to point to, which I just said, the equipment and improvements. So as you can see, it looks like that our budget is, we're saving 17% in that area. But again, that was something that was bumped up in the current fiscal year because of that major renovation in one of our lease properties to be able to account for that. So that's why that number is favorable or going down 17%. And then other than that, no other notable changes. So we can move to the next slide. Oh, actually, well, while we're still here, no worries. Since we're on the non-operating, a lot of people will ask, well, what is a non-operating budget and why is it so big? With the parking division, yes, we do on-street meter collection and maintenance, but we also have many parking garages, and parking garages are very large structures that are exposed to the elements. And with that comes a bunch of non-operating expenses. So yes, we have equipment and improvements, which we do, contractual services, but in the non-operating expenses, those are our lease agreements. Those might be debt payments that we have to make on those bonds that were issued to originally start those garages. By that number is pretty large. And we operate 15 garages and lots all across the city. We can go to the next slide. Okay. These are our revenue projections. So this is what we are looking at. And as those numbers sink in, I just want to give a little bit of context. One of the big things that we have been investing in over my time as treasurer and even before my time is making sure that technology is keeping up with the times, and especially with parking. to make sure that parking is as accessible and easy to use all across the city. We've seen great results with our Park Mobile app, people using the app more. So one of the trends that we're seeing is more people paying for meters than getting tickets. So we're happy about that. If you can pay $1 an hour, that helps you not have to pay $20 an hour for a ticket. So we are happy that our technology is leading to more meter usage and fewer tickets. You'll also see that boots actually have a dollar value, where it didn't in 2024. There's just been no capacity at the tow lot, so being able to, or booting vehicles and not having anywhere to tow them was just not fair to residents and folks that were in the area. So we had halted our booting and towing system. We're currently working to add capacity with another tow lot in the city so that we can help get a lot of these derelict cars and folks that have thousands of dollars in parking fines that they choose not to pay and get those back within the system. And then again, with all of our garages, you can see most of them, but not all of them, have monthly parking contracts. So we have our monthly parkers, and then we also have transient parking and event parking built into those revenue projections. So you can see those projections and the variances there, but also including, yes, the revenues are high, but also going back to that note, those non-operating expenses, which are debt service payments, but also the upkeep of these garages are pretty high. And I will say, when we look at the revenues, one of the critiques, because I'm always open to talking about critiques. One of the critiques of the parking division is that, well, parking makes so much money, or at least other parking entities are making money. Why not the City of St. Louis garages and the City of St. Louis parking tickets? Well, we charge $20 for a parking ticket, and that's after 2 rate raises in the last 6 to 8 years, and we're still the lowest in the nation and definitely the lowest for a major metropolitan city. And that's okay, because my goal is to make sure that there is safe, quality, available parking in the city, but we don't need to necessarily charge an arm and a leg to be able to do that, as long as we are making a profit. So you will see that our profit margin is around $2 to $3 million a year. If we up that cost from $20 a ticket to a Chicago price, $65, $70 a ticket, we could generate about $9 million more in revenue with 0 additional costs. But I doubt that St. Louisans would want to pay a $65, $70 ticket in the city of St. Louis just for missing time on a meter. So we are trying to do what works for St. Louis. And again, not what works for Chicago, not what works for LA or Boston. We want to do what works for St. Louis. The other thing, a lot of our garages, we have city employees there. So I know there have been talks about subsidizing or using parking for city employees as a city benefit, and that's something that I'm in favor of and willing to have the conversation around. But another reason why we don't have the rates that a lot of these private garages have is because we also don't want to charge city workers $250 a month to park on an open lot, whereas there are private entities that are doing that and also don't have it staffed with live personnel, which is something that we also do. So yeah, they charge higher prices, they lower their costs by not using human beings, and that is just not something that we do in the parking division. So yes, we have higher costs and we charge less. If we just wanted to make as much money as possible, we would have fewer staff and charge more money, but our goal is, again, to be a productive city department and make sure that people have parking options, affordable parking options, safe parking options, and quality parking options. We can go to the next slide. So talking about those repairs, so all of these repairs, this is just the budgeted repairs over the last 3 fiscal years, so you can see where those are. I will point out, so numbers are numbers, but I will point out, so if I take Central Downtown, if you look at 2023 versus 2025, you see a big difference in the amount there. And it may seem a little nonsensical, but I would say for most of our garages, it's not that, okay, something happened last year, now it needs repairs. Most of the garages are on a schedule. So when we have the revenue bond that's issued, we also have a maintenance schedule for all these garages. So again, if I look at Central Downtown, it doesn't mean that, all right, something big happened in 2023, which accounted for the cost in 2024. It's just, this is the regular scheduled maintenance, and that encumbrance of 400 or almost 500,000 is just planned in its scheduled maintenance for year 10 or year 15, whatever year that garage may be in. We can go to the next one. All right, our debt balance, this is pretty simple, it's going down. We haven't built any new garages, so we haven't issued any new debt. So all we've been doing is making sure that we're making our debt payments. So this is exactly the trend that we want to see. Next slide. And our reserves. So this is climbing up slowly. You can see there's a big dip in between 2018 and 2021, or the pandemic years, and there are footnotes about that. So in 2019, there was a vote to move a total of almost $16 million to the city's general revenue fund. So I guess in the last 5 years, an additional $15 million contribution to the city's general fund. And then also some equipment that was purchased for our streets department as well. So that's something that we do on an ongoing basis. And in a later slide, I'll talk more about that. Next slide. Throughout the years, just looking at our general fund contributions, so $800,000 is what we contributed for the end of this fiscal year. And I will say there are certain things that are built into the budget, which are in the bill, where we might have legal services for new structures. We do have legal services for new structures that we might build. We have dollars that are set aside in our cost structure for building those things or seeing whether they're viable. So doing soil samples, engaging a design builder. So those things do cost money. So we build that into the budget. Now, if we don't build, that does mean that there's more, or if we don't do a certain thing or we don't spend up to a certain amount, that means that there is more money that will go to the general fund. And that 40% contribution is by state statute. The 60% goes into our personnel, but also just being able to update and modernize our equipment, but also costs go up every year. So we have to adjust and our budget won't be the same every year. But that 800K number at point of presentation was not 800K, but it was a lot less. I don't want to guesstimate, but I believe it was closer to that 400K that we see for 22. But again, after all said and done, usually our general fund contribution is higher than anticipated. And then I'll point out in the COVID years, zero, just because we actually took a loss in the parking division by suspending parking. And then also it was COVID. So a lot of uncertainty there, a lot of people not parking. Next slide, thank you. Upgrades. So I talked about the tech, so I won't go into that again, but one of the things that I do like is that we're always trying to upgrade. So in the past, monthly parking, they have to do a paper form. We've been able to completely go digital with that, and we've seen great results with it. And then I talked about security as well. So at first we were like, well, we can get 3 security officers, but as we've really bulked that up into 9 staff members that do a great job, not only patrolling our garages and lots, but sometimes we get called to other things based on security situations across the city, and we're happy that our security can respond as well. Next slide. Oh, actually, if you go back, and I keep talking about this, but I'm really proud of it. With our downtown garage improvements, we saw a big drop off in people who wanted to park at the couple's garage, just because windows were getting broken into vandals and car thefts and things like that. But we've made significant improvements, and we're actually almost done. I think we're almost done. We're almost done with those improvements. So I'm happy to, again, continue to provide safe, quality parking for folks and generate more revenue for the city. Next slide. All right. Value adds. So just a couple of things that we do. I'll go to the last one that's top of mind first, but we do the juror. A lot of people don't know we do juror shuttle service. So jurors will park at the Williams lot if they're parking with us, and then we actually shuttle them to and from their parking. So that's a service and a value add that we do to the city. We have our own staff that drive the shuttles, and we do all the maintenance and upkeep on the vans and purchase those vans as well. So that's a value add that we do. We've forgiven hundreds of thousands of dollars in tickets. So we want to have a heart. Sometimes people forget that they have a ticket. And a $20 ticket doubles and goes to 40, then goes to 80. So we've held multiple amnesty days in conjunction with other events that the city is doing so to promote, health awareness or vaccinations or youth activities or violence prevention. We make sure we're offering an additional incentive for people attending and saying we will forgive either up to $100 or bring you back down to your base payments. And seems like St. Louisans are really excited about that. They take advantage of that, and we're happy to be able to offer that when we do. And then when there are events, we often get requests to have free parking on City Hall lot. So as long as there are no conflicts, that's a service that we love to provide to make sure that when people are using services and resources offered by the city of St. Louis and feel like their city is giving them that value add too. So just a few ways that we don't monetarily give money out to the city, but don't accept money for certain things that we know are just going to be value adds for the city as a whole. Next slide. Oh, future focus. So what's on the horizon? Just continuing to support development across the city. The parking division tends to be the last stop for development when it comes to parking. As you know, we have parking requirements or parking availability requirements with developments, and parking is not always the sexiest thing to secure funding for. So sometimes developers will come to us to say, we want this to happen. It's going to be a value add to the city. Can the treasurer's office step in on the parking side? So we're engaged in a couple of conversations that hopefully bear fruit and increase density within the city. We also know that parking isn't the solution to everything, so I know we want to make sure that we have other modes of transportation. I'm a big believer in public transportation, being a Boston native. It was all I relied on until I literally came to St. Louis. But we're also looking at, what are some ways that other people can get around, and how can we be more sustainable with that? So we're looking at solar enhancements, EV charging infrastructure all across the city, constantly putting in grants to secure those dollars to bring back to St. Louis and allow us to get on par with what other cities are doing across the nation. And then, of course, always looking for new technology. I know technology isn't the answer to everything, but if we can use technology to make sure people are safe, make sure that parking is an easy thing to do in St. Louis, we're going to do that. Next slide. That's it. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. No, I think that's it. So any questions? Do I pass it over to you now? Okay.
Well, thank you, Treasurer Wayne. Appreciate the presentation. Very thorough. Do we have any public comment?
We have none.
Thank you. I'll go to the committee to see if they have any questions. Alderwoman Keys? Is Alderwoman Keys still with us?
I might have put her to sleep.
She's still online.
We'll throw it to Alderwoman Velasquez since I can see her.
No questions. Thank you. Thank you, Treasurer Lane.
Okay. I assume that Alderwoman Schweitzer doesn't have any questions on her own bill, but I always want to ask.
Less a question and more, I think we've been talking a lot about the booting and other alternatives to deal with cars that are just flagrantly breaking parking laws. And so I thought that was a particularly interesting piece of the discussion. And I'm not sure if the committee is also interested in hearing a little bit more, but I think that would be great.
I certainly would be. Treasurer Wayne, would you like to speak to that?
Yep, absolutely. So we're always looking at ways that we can increase capacity for what is already going on in terms of pedestrian and motor vehicle safety. So one of the things that we have started to institute is booting on very old temp tags and expired plates. There's probably, I don't have the data, so I can't say this is empirical, but I would assume or guess that there is a strong positive correlation between some of the vehicles that aren't operating safely and how expired their temp tags may be. And we're working with, but we do know that there are good actors out there who probably just can't afford it. And so I know that the city is looking at a program that will give out loans to people who are actually trying to pay for their temp tags, but just might not have the money, or pay for their tags, but just might not have the money. So that's something that we want to coordinate, or we're going to be coordinating on. We are also working with you, Alderman Browning, to get a bill that would allow for us to put some parameters in place to allow residents to be able to report, because we have about 21 parking enforcement officers, and it's a big city when you have to walk around on foot. So being able to mobilize our residents to be to report these things, parking on sidewalks and not allowing pedestrian or wheelchair access, parking way too close to a stop sign, blocking fire hydrants, things like that, that maybe not all of our parking enforcement officers can see because they're not everywhere at all times, but being able to have more eyes on the ground and get these things resolved. So those are a couple of things, as well as we know when we bring back booting and towing, because it is a consequence of all the actions that we talked about already, or that I talked about already. We think that will hopefully be a deterrent to a lot of those non-moving violations, and then hopefully that curtails into that hopeful correlation that I was talking about between those parkers, and then also those drivers.
Thank you. How old are we talking about when it comes to tags?
We said egregiously old. So we said more than 6 months, but we're really looking at like more than a year. And there are plenty.
Yeah, at a certain point, they're paper tags. So at a certain point, I've seen just 0 plates at all instead of the expired temp tag. Yeah. On the note of walking sidewalks and accessibility, I do want to shout out your office for helping us work through that. It is absolutely an accessibility issue when a crosswalk is blocked. Somebody who is using a mobility device, such as a wheelchair, has no other option to cross the street. And so I really want to uplift that. I think it's really important that we focus on making our streets accessible for everybody and not putting people in dangerous situations just because somebody felt like leaving their car in the wrong spot. Mm-hmm. I noticed on the presentation that what was not listed under revenue was the parking districts that are enforced across the city. Is that because we do not make money off of parking districts?
Yes. So yes and no. So yes, we don't. It's almost just like I could have added it to the value add. So we take a loss on that, but we know that all neighborhoods are different, and we wanted to be a solution to the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood, which was about to lose their parking district after Park Central was just no longer able to sustain it. So we put up the money, thousands of dollars, to make sure we had the tech conversion that we needed to, and then the integration of it. And that's something that hopefully, as well, if more neighborhoods want it, hopefully it becomes economy of scale. If not, still a value add to the city so we can make up for it in other ways. But yeah, so we don't budget revenue from that because it's more of it's an expense.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just think sometimes I hear residents who will say, oh, it's just a money grab for the city. And I assure them it is not. It actually costs more money to administer. But we do it to protect people's parking in a situation when there is an increase in demand for parking that may be coming from outside the neighborhood or within the neighborhood that then conflicts with residents' ability to park near their homes. It's a tricky subject because while you absolutely should be able to park near your home, they are public streets. And so I think striking that balance is key. And I would resist trying to do it too much more in the city, but also just to save your office, because I don't know that enforcing that would be easy. But we do appreciate everything you do, and I don't have any additional questions at this time. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized to close.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Treasurer Lane, for coming and for that incredibly informative presentation. I have nothing further to add, and I appreciate your favorable consideration of this bill.
Okay, and with that, I will accept a motion for a due pass recommendation for Board Bill number 45.
So moved.
I'm going to second that because I think I'm the only other person here.
Previous roll.
Hearing previous roll, is there any objection? Hearing no objection, congratulations, you have passed Board Bill number 45. And I will hand it back to Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning, and thank you again for coming to the Treasurer's office. They're always very responsive and helpful, so thank you. That is the last board bill we have on the agenda today. We have no resolutions to review and no committee discussions. We have already acknowledged any written testimony.
Just the one from Charles Bryson.
Fantastic. Announcements. I would like to again remind anyone watching that our regularly scheduled public infrastructure and utilities meeting is different next week in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. So we will have our public infrastructure and utilities meeting here in the Kennedy Room on Tuesday at 3:30 instead of our normal Wednesday at 3:30 time. I hope everyone can make that work. Excuse members, I would like to excuse Alderman Vollmer for necessary absence. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Previous roll? It's been, any objection to previous roll? Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.